Hey everyone, Wags here from Eagle Dynamics. In this DCS video, we're going to take a look at the Data Transfer Cartridge, or DTC. So some of you may be asking, well, what's a DTC? DTC is just a data card. And it's a data card that can be programmed on the ground prior to flight, where it allows the pilots through a PC or laptop to enter all sorts of data in the squadron room. And that could be things like your communications ladder, your countermeasure system programs, route data, data link data, and a whole lot more. And all that data can then be downloaded to the data link card and then brought to the jet, plugged in, and then all that data is then imported and loaded into the jet rather than the pilot having to enter all that manually by hand while in the cockpit. For the initial version of the DTC, we're first going to focus on the countermeasure dispenser programs as well as the radio presets for the F-16C and the F-18C. Based on test results and customer feedback, we'll then iterate on this to add other elements to program as well as expand to other aircraft like the AH-64D and the A-10C. Now, in addition to mission and campaign builders being able to create their own DTCs from within the mission editor, players will also be able to modify and create their own DTC programs prior to entering a mission, both single player and multiplayer. Okay, so let's take a look at this in operation. So let's start in the mission editor for those of you making campaigns and missions that will allow you to create DTC programs for aircraft. And to do so, we're going to start by going to the edit dropdown and select DTC manager for the bottom. Later, we're going to add an icon on the left side to make navigation to it a bit easier. So at the very top, we have file and load, not file load. And we can see that we have the current DTC loaded as DTC2. The aircraft type is an F-16. And you can see the file name here is DTC2. So before we go further, let's click on File. And from here, we have New, Save, Save As, Delete, Import, Export, Defaults, and Rename. And we'll talk about some of these during the course of this video. But for now, we're going to go to New and create a brand new DTC. So we have the aircraft type. We're going to keep it on the Viper. Let's give it a name. Let's call it DTC-3. And OK. So now this is going to vary based on the aircraft, in this case, the F-16 or the F-18. With the F-16, we have DTC partitions for the mission planning data, or MPD, not multi-purpose display. And at this point, we have the CMDS, or the countermeasure dispenser system. And as mentioned, we have many other partitions that will be added later. But we first want to nail down this initial build first and evaluate the feedback, make tweaks before we iterate too far along and have to redo a lot of stuff. Next, below that, we have all the different CMDS programs for all the different manuals, the auto, as well as the bypass. And here you can see all the different program variables you can set up, as well as the delay between programs, 2 seconds. Below that, we have the auto selections based on the threat aircraft and the waveform. So in other words, let's say we go to like an SU-30. Right now it's set up that if you get tracked by it or say locked, it will automatically initiate the auto to program based on the settings you have up here. So instead, let's change that to if we get launched on by an SU-30, instead of auto 2, we'll go to auto 3. Simple as that. Then of course we have our bingo settings and the remainder of the CMDS programs options down here. And of course the F-18C will have its own unique set of CMDS options based on the real aircraft. The other element initially, of course, will be the COM. And here we can set all the different presets for COM1 as well as COM2. So once we made all the changes we want, we go back up to File, and we'll hit Save. So now we have DTC3 here. So for giggles, let's make one more. Let's say New. We're going to call this DTC-4. And let's change the F-16 search to Auto 1. And we're going to save that. And now that we've created some programs, let's apply these to an aircraft. So let's grab an F-16, Place it in an airfield. Make sure it's player or client. You can only set DTCs for clients and players. And going to start from the ramp. Keep it simple. Okay, so we have a new icon here on the extreme right, DTC. We'll select that. And here are all the different possible DTC cartridges we can apply to this aircraft within the mission editor. So if we go to the drop-down, we have DTC 1, 2, 3, and 4. And as you recall, we made a couple of these just now. So we go to DTC, select that, and we'll add it. Well, if we want to, we could also take 4 and add that as well. But of course, you can only have one at a time. But this allows you the ability to very quickly select which DTC card or cartridge you want to apply to this particular aircraft. So that's the basics of how you set up a DTC in the mission editor. Now we'll take a look at is how to load or edit a DTC prior to joining a mission from the player side. For players, both single player and multiplayer, loading a DTC cartridge or editing one is really easy. And you can do this on the ground or actually an air start. It really doesn't matter. All you have to do is start here from the briefing screen, go to the Open DTC button here at the bottom. You'll see an interface very similar to what we saw for the S16 in the mission editor, just on the other side. In this case, though, we have an A-18C selected. At this point, if we want to, we could actually just modify our countermeasures programs for auto, just like we did with the S16. In this case, it's threat tables and countermeasures for the ALR67, again, specific to the F-18C, or we could go to the comms, which again, you also see specific to the F-18C. Or if the mission editor, when they created the mission, set up DTC cartridges for this aircraft, they will be available here, like we saw in the mission editor section of this video. Drop down, we have options for DTC 1, 2, and 3. If I want to go, say, DTC 3, I'll select that. I'll hit load, and easy peasy. For this last section of the video, I wanted to touch on how to load a DTC when you're on the ground, either from the F-18C or the F-16C for a hot start or cold start. In this case, it's a hot start in the F-18C. So I'm going to go to Menu, go to Support page. I'm going to go to the MUMI. And here we have options to load the partitions for the ALR67. I want to click that. And the partition for the communications, COM, and I'm going to click that. And once they're boxed, it means that they are loaded from the DTC. And finally, loading DTCs in the Viper is about as easy as it can get. All we need to do there is let's go to the main menu. We're going to select DTE. And in the middle, we can see the DTC loaded. In this case, a DTC demo is the name I made for it. We can hit load, and it'll load all the contents of the DTC, or we can do these individually. So I'm going to go MPD and COM. And when they're boxed and reverse highlighted, indicates that they're loading. And it really is as easy as that. So there are some other elements I did not really go into, like importing and exporting, and I would advise you to take a look at the DTC guide, which I'll put a link to in the description. I didn't want to go into that in too much detail because I think in all likelihood, more than anything, that's probably going to be changing quite a bit. But of course, there'll be a lot of other elements that are going to be changing too, because we're using this initial version as more of a test case to really evaluate your feedback. To see what works, what doesn't work, what can be improved. So I would expect a lot will change based on this version I'm using as of April 2025. So folks, very much hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Thanks.